it just like a church session. Julie Bertha, rap God, I am her blessing. Ha! Won't he do it? It's that holy music. They try to mute it, but I rebuke it. It's therapeutic. It was already written, so I don't gotta write it. I was already gifted, so you don't gotta like it. Showing me and I am not excited. Adam was tempted, it's crippling. He didn't want to bite it. Get off Instagram and get some discipline.
Hello, family, and welcome to The One. Real people, real topics, real talk. As always, today we have an absolutely amazing show. Today's show is entitled The Virtual Nightmare, The Ill Effects of Virtual Learning. I personally had some bad experiences with virtual learning through my grandson, and I'm seeing all across the board that people are struggling with the whole concept. Before we get started, I want to introduce my co-host, that guy.
What's going on, everybody?
And also, I'm delighted to have a good friend of mine, Dr. Makini Beck.
Hello.
On the stage, ready to rock and roll. First, I want to start with the whole virtual learning concept. Of course, everyone knows that, it came upon us abruptly, because of COVID-19. It was almost like overnight. People had to learn, and our kids had to learn how to educate themselves through a laptop. What I'm seeing, not just in our area in Rochester, New York, but in Detroit, Chicago, everywhere, it's not working out. It's a total disaster. And one of the things that stuck in my mind, and Jonathan, you're aware of this, is one of our students from our youth boot camp who's an athlete who had a 3.9 average.
Absolutely, yep.
And then once it went to virtual learning, got Fs, all Fs. He literally got all Fs. And what I think is, a lot of times we say that the problem is the students. I'm reading a lot that, because even with our case, with our student, his problem was he just doesn't wake up. He just can't get up in time, and that's completely understandable if you're at home and you're on the game all night.
Yep.
You're not going to get up at 9 and 9:30 and open your laptop. Because, like I said, my grandson, I have him full time. He's 5, and I don't be wanting to get up and go through school with him.
Please, 9 o'clock, that's Netflix time.
So let me ask you something, Dr. Beck. Currently, you being a professor, an educator, have you diverted to virtual learning and teaching your class virtually?
So I teach at RIT.
Right.
And I teach... it's called a 2-3 load, where you teach in the spring. I teach 2 classes. In the fall, I teach 3 classes. And in the spring, I teach 2 classes. So a total of 5 classes a year. And before COVID, I actually did teach an online class in the spring semester. But now with COVID, I actually teach. It's called a hybrid, where it's I teach online and in person, but I also will be teaching my online class too. So I'm shifting. So a lot of my contact hours that I would have in my normal fall semester classes half of that have been now shifted to teaching online.
Okay, in your case, because you're teaching adults.
Yes.
Are you having any issues, or is it easier because they're adults, so they know, and plus they're paying to go, so it seems like they'll be more attentive. Are you finding any issues with virtual learning on a college level?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? I didn't think so.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I think that when you go to college, especially for freshman students, and a lot of our students of color who are first year or first generation students, you go to college because you want that experience, you want you want the interaction, right? So, and of course, college isn't just your classes that you go to every day. It's all that social life stuff that happens on the dorms, at night, right?
Party.
All that social stuff. So for my students, when you cut out a lot of the social stuff that they are accustomed to or that they're expecting when they come to campus, to then just focusing on, okay, now it's just academics. A lot of my students have to stay quarantined in their rooms if they live on campus. Some of them live alone, others have one another or roommates. So they have to, but so a lot of them are taking classes online from their room. Or so yeah, there's an issue of, so there's none of that social time, and then it's boring,
right,
to just take a class online.
Let me ask you, have you noticed a decrease in grades,
Yes.
even on the college level?
Yes.
See, and here's what I think about that. Like, a lot of public school students are failing. And the way I look at it, you're teaching them different, so the grading system should be different. Do you agree with that?
Here's the thing. I think the fundamental piece of this is that if you are an online instructor, you have to be taught how to teach online. This is not just...
Preach.
This is not just, okay, yeah, you can just transfer your stuff online. No, the whole pedagogy behind online teaching takes practice. So before I taught my online class, I went to seminars, I went to workshops to figure out, okay, how can I teach something like urban poverty, urban injustice online? I can't just slap some readings, and expect everybody to just do the readings and then do the assignments and then I grade the assignments. No. So it takes a certain kind of pedagogy. So you have to, so number one is, if you're an instructor, you have to be taught how to teach online. And I think across the board, college and K-12, they have not been taught. They haven't been given the instruction. What do you do other than to say to them, put all your stuff online for students?
Ooh.
I never looked at it that way. I never looked at that. There's a whole different mindset and training that's necessary to teach our kids online. That you sharing that with me, it gives a little cushion to how I feel as far as how you call it, our K-12 public education system, because I'm like passionate about it. Because even prior to this whole virtual thing, our school systems have been failing our kids anyway. The COVID thing probably disguised a lot. And that's why when I hear about kids failing, I just no, grade them differently. Do you agree there needs to be another way of grading, or you think the grading as it stands works as long as the educators are trained to educate virtually?
So I want to get to the grading for a second, and I want to talk about the teachers, right? Is that you'll have some phenomenal teachers who are in class. Right. And we call them formative and summative assessments. So, so you can assess students by just looking to see, okay, are they getting it? Are they talking? Are they, can you see a light bulb going off, and then you have the assessments where it's paper and pencil. Right. So you have some phenomenal teachers who can do both in the classroom. And so you have to but then when you take that same phenomenal teacher in the classroom and you put them online, they fail. Wow. They fall flat on their face because they don't know how to do the same formative and summative assessments, right? So I think you have to first start with the individual and see, okay, what works for you, individual? Right? What happens, so what will make you the best teacher that you can be? Because when you're at your best, then you can then you can transfer that to your students, And I think great educators, of course, know how their students learn. But I think that you have educators who are struggling themselves, who've never had online meetings, let alone to teach online. I have folks in my department who've never, who didn't know what...
like what Zoom was.
Ain't know nothing about no Zoom. no.
No Google Meet, no none of that.
None of that. Right?
I bet they don't know FaceTime either.
None of that. Right? But you want them to then now teach.
That's deep. Wow. That's deep. And what it does, it also furthers my mindset as far as the K through 12 is doing what they call stopgap measures. They're just doing something, just the bare minimum, just to seem as if they're doing something, when now, from hearing from you, the first step is training your educators how to educate online.
Step one.
Wow. I got to say, I thought I was going to go in on teachers today, but you really changed how I even view that.
I got to co-sign with that, because even during my college experience, even some of the professors I had online, I never thought should have been teaching online. And especially, I only took certain online courses because I knew the instructor. So I thought I was going to get the same type of attention just virtually.
Right.
You know, I thought they would be checking up on assignments, grading the same way. It's a totally different atmosphere. And even being an athlete, I'm like, all right, now they going to pay extra close attention to me, making sure my assignment's due at 11:59. I'm like, here y'all go on this bull again, man. But just to even say that, it's like, okay, here's the PowerPoint, here's the due dates. Good luck. We'll see you in 15 weeks.
That's insane.
Wow. And looking at it from a higher education standpoint, now it even makes me realize just how bad it is for K through 12. And here's an example. Like the last 2 months of last year, my grandson, who was in pre-K, it was all virtual. So he's 4, and I have to sit next to him because he's not going to sit in the chair. And some of his virtual classes were an hour and a half. It was absolutely insane to get my 4-year-old grandson to sit there for an hour and a half to listen to a teacher who wasn't trained on how to teach virtually. Therefore, she wasn't knowledgeable of how to keep it exciting, how to keep the kid going, how to keep my grandson, different colors, books, music, whatever. She wasn't. So 15 minutes, he up and he in the kitchen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, and I think with training, folks would look back and be like, we were insane.
Yes.
That what you really would want to do is, okay, you break it up into 10-minute blocks, and
Smart.
And the other thing, too, is that the research is so new, like there's not a lot of research on, okay, at K-12 virtual learning, like kindergarten, how do you teach kindergartners, virtually?
Right.
The research is very new. It's very limited, So that's the other thing, is that we're what did they say? We're building the plane as we're flying it.
Wow, I like that. And one of the things too with virtual learning, because now parents have a up close and personal view of how their kids are being taught. So that's becoming a problem too. I'm seeing things on social media where the parents are hearing things the teachers are saying. Going back to my grandson, one of his teachers, the hour and a half long class, you could just tell she'd never prepared. She would constantly ask him, okay, what do you want to do next?
Oh.
What do you want to do? She would constantly ask him that. And then, because once again, I got to sit right next to him to keep him from running upstairs or just dashing off and disappearing. And there were a lot of times where she's talking to him and she's trying to get a response, get answers, and he's responding, but she's not listening. Mm-hmm. So she was asking him the same over and over. Mm-hmm. And then finally, you could tell she didn't want to do it. And there was something to gauge, because he had one virtual teacher who was on point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She had 2 cameras and she would play with the balls, and he could see the different, and she would get the thing, okay, what fishing hole you want me to go in? Oh, that's a bluefish. Like she probably stayed up all day preparing.
Right.
And so I had something to gauge it against. Mm-hmm. Right. And going back to what you said, teachers aren't trained to teach virtually, but that was my measuring stick to see, even though they're not trained, those who put in the extra effort can do it. Because every day I had 2 teachers, one who you could tell when she got off her Zoom classes, she spent the rest of the night coming up with different things.
Right.
And she would ask me, so what is he into? Oh, he's into dinosaurs. So the next time we log on, we're doing a book, and the book is about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then she's doing another book, and you see black kids in the book.
Yeah.
So she was real in tune. But you got the other teacher who would constantly say, you can opt out of this anytime you get ready.
Yes, because she didn't want to be there.
She kept telling me that.
Right.
She kept telling me it. So one of the things, Jonathan, you and I had this discussion last night, what the virtual learning is doing is totally we're going to lose an entire generation. Literally, we're going to lose an entire generation. Do you think that, Dr. Beck, do you think that between now and next year, that our K through 12 can do anything? And what can they do to turn this virtual nightmare around?
You know, I don't think we're going to lose a generation. I have faith in our parents. I have faith in our grandparents. I think that where before we had teachers do a lot of the work, now we're going to see our grandparents stepping up. We're going to see the parents stepping up. We're going to see the aunties. I feel like, because even with my cousin, he's like, same thing. He's in 12th grade. He was supposed to log on. He ain't log on because, whatever. But what I saw happen is my aunt stepped up and said, what do you need to do? And his mother stepped in, and my cousin also stepped in. So I feel like I don't think that we'll lose a generation. I think that folks will step in and see what needs to be done and figure out. So maybe we're not, the kids or whatever, not learning, like maybe like the blocks, how teachers do whatever.
Right. They're not
blocks,
learning the
right?
physical aspect of education.
Right. But they're going to be learning something else, that parents will be teaching them that perhaps they didn't teach before.
Okay.
That's my hope.
So would it make sense is if our education system also taught parents and guardians how to assist their kids during this virtual learning experience?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like if they did that and educated the teachers, but we're probably too far in, they're not going to waste time to educate teachers. It seems like they should also gear it more toward teaching the parents and guardians as well.
Yeah, but people have, and then I also think about folks who have been homeschooling their kids. And folks who homeschool realize that, these kids don't really need to be in school for 8 hours. Because what you do in your 8 hours, I can actually do in 2. And then I could do all these other things. Of course, now these are people who have luxury in terms that they don't have a job, right? But I think that, but there's other things that we're I think teaching our kids now that we're at home with them. I don't know. That's just kind of like my thought. But so in an ideal world, first of all, the school district needs to get on board with teaching their teachers, right? But so absolutely. So for the school, first of all, we can't even wait for the school board to start.
Absolutely. I say the same thing.
Parents,
I say the same thing.
But I really do think that we need to have faith in our parents. And even if you don't know algebra, that there's so many other things that we, in our community, like what you're doing, with your community engagement work. Knocking on people's doors. Right. Like engaging with people one-on-one, face-to-face.
Right. And finding out their likes and dislikes and what they need.
Seeing what are the issues in our communities. What are ways that we can then, bring back, or reclaim our community. Yeah. I feel like we know how to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, and we can even teach each other how to do that better. So I don't know. I see that. Yeah, no, our parents can't teach the algebra, but I think they can teach this other stuff.
Right. And I like that concept and that thought process, because I always say that there needs to be a call to action where parents and community leaders step up and we create an additional educational system for our kids. Just like prior to COVID, and we were going through the Rochester City School District being in a deficit. And then prior to that, you had the distinguished educator who gave his report and pretty much was saying, okay, the schools are just not doing what they're supposed to do. I used to be angry at that because I'm looked, okay, we got all these rec centers, we got Boys and Girls Club, we got all these. Let's come together and make up for their loss. Whether they're educating them or not, let's come up with a system and pull our kids in. Yes. Let's reach out to retired teachers who cared. And a lot of them, it's not about money. If they can just come for an hour or two and teach a classroom. So that's the number one thing that we look into, because we have something called the Player One Academy, and that's exactly what it's about. And it's that combination of using what the kids like, which is the biggest thing, is video games. And we teach them what we call real world education classes, where at first we teach kids about their inner being, which is handling depression, anxiety, adversity, knowing how to be open to hearing no. So we teach them the inside first, then we teach them the outside, understanding people and their differences, diversity and inclusion. And then once we teach them the outside and be able to look at the world through different eyes, then we go into the trades and teaching them all that. And once again, the call to action, and I'm going to say it, anyone can call us at 585-694-5370 or One Mission, One Family, One Love.com and reach out to us, because we have a plan in place. Because once again, I feel that we need to stop waiting for other people to educate our kids. Yeah, the virtual thing is a nightmare. Mm-hmm. I mean, like you said earlier, we're teaching something more by having them in the home. And when you go back in history, it was all about teaching your kids in the house. We didn't have schools. Mm-hmm. I was reading something the other day that said kids got the best education when they went to them little ran down one room buildings.
They did. They did.
They only fit like 10 or 15 kids, and you had a chalkboard, wasn't no heat. Kids got the best education when it was like that. But now, because of a lot of different reasons, because we integrated these schools and watered it down, and now they're saying, okay, it's a deeper issue of why we're being educated the way we are. It's much deeper than the whole virtual learning and the school deficit. But we can turn that around collectively as parents, as adults, as guardians, as grandparents, as aunts and uncles. We just have to stop being, I don't want to use the word lazy because it sounds kind of rough. We need to say,
actually, I think this is a great opportunity to reclaim that time.
Absolutely.
Them 8 hours that our kids had.
Absolutely.
In a broken school system.
Absolutely.
Now we can say, you know what? Now we can reclaim some of that.
Absolutely.
And I know some of us are working, so it's hard.
Right.
But I think it's the mind frame, and this is what I learned from you too, is that how can we shift our mindset?
Absolutely.
To seeing, okay, well, what are some benefits?
Right. And one thing you said too, like a lot of times people think, because I'm working, I'm busy, I got a lot to do. We tell people all the time, you just give us 2 hours a month. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all we want, 2 hours a month. Now imagine you having 5 educators, just giving up 2 hours a month. We good. Mm-hmm. You pick a certain grade. Let's just use rec centers because they're centrally located. Might be whatever, but you find centrally located areas and you start bringing kids in, and at the same time, that will bring the parents in. Because one thing we've learned, once you bring the child in, the parent is all automatically engaged because they appreciate it. So once again, just as a people, as a whole, as a city, and not just in Rochester, New York, across the board, I mean, like today, immediately, we need to come together, even if it's not with us. Just leave the school district out, leave the politicians out, and just sit down with people who want to educate kids. And you can have someone educate a kid that's not an educator, as long as you got a good lesson plan. Yep. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
As long as you got good lesson plans, you can have someone, a Toastmaster who knows how to speak, can be an engineer. But if they got a decent lesson plan and know how to communicate and know how to talk, all your educators don't have to be teachers.
And I agree with that, because even through my K through 12th experience, I'll never forget trigonometry. I was in 11th grade. What they told me about my teacher then, I was like, I'll give her a chance. But her communication, her lesson plans were just off. And every time the principal would come in to assess her, it was like she got a gold star. I'm like, nah, she can't teach. Like, we all struggling, like, bro, what you got here? What you got here? And somehow she got this answer, and we don't understand. And she's like, you guys just got to put forth an extra effort. And so I'm like, went to my guidance counselor. I said, I'm dropping this. I said, I can't deal with this teacher no more.
You know what? That's funny. Let me ask you, Dr. Beck, does tenure kind of give you that option to not teach? Because when he said that something, I'm like, okay, she has that tenure, so she don't have to teach, and nothing can happen to it.
And I think tenure is a good thing, but it's a bad thing.
Right.
right? Tenure is a good thing because it gives you job security, and the goal with tenure was so that if you had a political position and you stayed at that, you wouldn't lose your job because of your political standpoint.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's good, But on the other side is then some people use that as a way to just coast. So after you did your 5 years, now you got tenure. Now you can just coast, go to sleep
in the class if you want to.
It sure felt like that plenty of times.
Now you can just go to sleep for the next 30 years.
Oh, not for a class for the next 30 years.
That's a problem,
So,
but I want to say too, I have a story. I don't know how much time we have.
Go ahead.
But I went to Ghana, and I went to the schools there. And there again, same thing, very the schools they're very there's no concrete floors, so the floors are dirt floors. And the kids have to use the outhouse. And the window in the school isn't even a window with a glass. It's just an open,
Where the breeze and everything, birds, whatever can come in.
Right. So it's just open, very modest, But when I walked into that, and of course, no technology, just a chalkboard, But what I noticed with those kids is love. I mean, just when we walked into those schools, the kids just want to embrace you. They want to just jump all over you, right? They have the biggest smiles. And then there was one little girl, her name was Patience, and she kind of just like stuck on my hip the whole time. And I said, man, I would love to take Patience to the U.S. so that she can experience the technology and better schools here in the U.S. And Patience, and a lot of the young girls there, they just cut their hair because they just have a low fro. I guess they just don't want to have to deal with hair or whatever. So they just cut their hair low. And I realized that, Patience, she has so much innocence that if she were to come to the U.S., we would break her.
Wow.
She would be broken. This little girl, they would tell her she's ugly because she doesn't have any hair. They would tell her that she has an accent, that she's stupid. They would tell her so many things. And so actually the best place for Patience is in that one-room school with no technology, no floors, right? But in a space where she feels love. She doesn't know what it means to be, less than or she doesn't know any of that.
Wow.
And I feel like our schools have such a role, has really done that to our kids.
Poisoned them.
Broken us. We are so broken. And our schools, our teachers play a huge role in that, So I think we need to really take this virtual nightmare, and really turn it around so that our parents are broken too. I'm broken, right? But really turn this around to see, how can we begin to start healing ourselves and our kids? What are those things that we can start doing, to heal? That's why I love what you're doing with Player One.
Thank you.
I love that you're in the community. One thing you posted was that, yes, it's good that we can protest the deaths of, these individuals, but it's another to be out here every day.
Right. That's the real battle. That's the real battle.
Every day.
Absolutely.
And that's not only the battle, but where our education is also lies.
Yeah, I agree.
That's where our healing lies.
I agree. That's
deep.
deep.
So that's where our education is. That's where our healing is. That's where that's where everything is.
Oh, powerful words. And once again, it's time to take education back in our hands. Let's stop putting it off on everyone else. Let's stop putting it off because it's so crazy now that when I hear that before we go, when I hear that a black young man has dropped out of school, I understand. Like, back in the day, I'd be like, man, what's wrong with you? You crazy. You better get back to school. I'm going to take you. But now when I hear about it, like, all right, I get it. And we have to get out of that mindset. And one of the key things we have to bring back to education and everything, and Dr. Beck, you said it so elegant, love. that's what we have to bring back. And I can guarantee any listener that Player One International, We Are One, Player One Academy, we doing it, and we're not going to stop. We're not.
It's the truth.
We're not play helping communities. It's just in our spirit. It's in our heart, and we're going to do it. And any listener, reach out to us, parent, child, anyone that's serious about taking this educational process into our own hands. And one of the key things about us, we action only. Mm-hmm. So when you reach out, be ready to go, because we're gonna be ready to go within 24 hours of that phone call. We don't play, period. You call us, be prepared to say, okay, let's go. See you tomorrow.
That's because we're birds that fly.
Right.
Not
Absolutely.
stay stuck in a cage.
Absolutely. Well, that's our show for today. I want to thank always that guy, and a special thank you to my dear friend, Dr. Makini Beck. You're about your business. And he knows I talk highly of you all the time. You know, every once in a while I reach out to you. Okay, let me see if she gonna bite. Let me send her something. Hey, we the future. I know she busy, but let me send her something. That guy, any parting words?
Dr. Beck really said it all.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Oh my God.
Definitely when you touched on accountability from the teacher's perspective.
And the training, the virtual training.
And I learned a lot from that. So everybody that's listening, no, it's just not on these kids. Come on. If you're getting mad at them for, literally not waking up and getting on, for their so-called class, then come on, there's something that lies deeper. Maybe they don't like the teacher. Maybe they're not getting it. There's always a deeper root to the issue. But at Player One, we don't make messes.
Right.
We clean them up.
Absolutely. Oh, that was deep, wasn't it? And Dr. Beck, any parting words for the listeners?
I'm just thankful to be here.
We're thankful to have you, and that's our show for today. Once again, you can find out more about it on the website, One Mission, One Family, One Love. Definitely for educators, parents, and teachers that want to move forward immediately, because we don't play. You can reach us at 585-694-5370. And my parting words are always one mission, one family, one love, and we're out.
It is all set. I found my pace. Now these brush me. Got $1 million smile. Started with some buck teeth. Show you how to get it now. Bet you niggas trust me. Young black with a gift. Must be. Oh, we got new names. You gotta add with a gift. Add with a gift. Add with a gift. Oh, we got new names. You gotta add with a gift. Add with a gift. Add with a gift. Like Clancy with a gift. T-Dan with a gift. T-Y with a gift. B-Will with a gift. Shia with a gift. Kyle with a gift. Claude with a gift. We all with a gift. Like